Hey everyone, here's a quick anatomy lesson on this area here. First up, eye sockets. A beginner's work is prone to look something like this. Notice how the eyes look stenciled on the face and don't suggest any structure underneath. Let's fix that. Here's the skull. See these two big bony openings? They look like sunglasses, but like those bad aviator ones. This outer perimeter of the eye socket is also called the orbit, and it gets its shape from three major bones. The frontal bone forms the brow ridge and the upper area of the orbit. The zygomatic forms the outer edge, and the maxilla completes the shape with the inner edge. Together, they make the lens shape of our sunglasses. Now, this is a deep, bony cavity. Look, I can put my finger right in there. The eyeball sits partially inside that space. It's harder to appreciate that depth from the front view, but from the side, the difference in depth compared to the protuberance of the brow is obvious. Of course, with the skin on, that relationship is still there. Eye sockets, along with the eyes themselves, are often cast into a shadow by light coming down from above. This shadow shape is a great way to reveal those three major bones. Whenever I'm developing a character or painting a face of any kind, I look for and think about that shape first, before drawing any eyes at all. That'll make sure my underlying structure is correct. And not just for the eyes. Those three bones capture like a third of the skull at least. From here, I can take the character wherever I want, building the eyes within the sockets if I like. And you can do that with more confidence now, knowing that you're constructing these forms in their correct anatomical place. Now let's take a look at an important area that lies in between all this, the nasal bridge area. If you've looked at cartoons before, you're probably familiar with this little line that leads from the eyebrows down into the nose. It's a nice shorthand that tells us that the form of the brow turns in before jutting out for the nose. And sure enough, on real people, the form indeed turns in somewhere between the top of the eye sockets before coming back out for the bridge or bony part of the nose. That bony part of the nose is right here, the nasal bone. That bone sits right below your skin. Go ahead and feel it for yourself. This connecting part here is called the glabella. Here's the glabella on a head model. It's a big plane that interfaces with the orbits and the nasal bridge. They share a bunch of touch points. If you are painting or shading your artwork like this, you can, of course, think of that simple cartoon line. It is there, but you'll need to further render the form with subtle changes of value. One simple study you can do is take a photograph of a head and plane it off. That is, replacing any softness with chiseled, faceted planes. So, as we discussed, the glabella goes inwards, but generally not enough to catch a shadow like the eye sockets do. Instead, the glabella is often in halftone. That is, a small step darker than the facing light value of the frontal bone. The glabella can change shape from model to model, but one other thing I learned from cartoons is that the glabella can be a useful rhythmic link between the two orbits. The top contour of the glabella can essentially form a bridge between the eyebrows. In these drawings, the rest of the glabella would look like this. Notice how its shape can change with the facial expression too. So let's go back to this painting. The eye sockets go in first, which give me a place to start modeling the lighter bridge of the nose. Then, if the light is coming from above, which it often is, I know that the frontal bone will get the brunt of that light, the lightest value. But notice when I did that, I purposely left behind the glabella, revealing it like you would a negative shape. And I used the base value of my canvas as the halftone value. So in a 4-minute lesson, we have figured out half the skull. That's not bad. If you learned something here, imagine what you might learn from my longer courses. You can find them at www.marcobucciartstore.com.